Greetings! I am Herbert Erperderp, and today I'm going to make smoke markers using the simple ingredients you see on screen now. Some clump foliage, paper clips, coins, some cheap super glue, and PVA glue, which is hidden off screen. The first step is to straighten out the paperclip. This will form the support for the smoke. Next, take some pliers and bend the end of the paperclip wire into a roughly flat, round shape in order to provide a decent amount of contact area to glue the paperclip to the coin. Something like this. Next, bend the wire to the desired shape. I like to add some gentle curves so the smoke isn't just going directly upwards. Then, trim the wire to the length you would like. If you want your smoke to branch into two plumes, you can bend some wire onto the main part and then glue it in place. Then the wire can be glued onto the coin. Of course, you don't need to use a coin as a base. Anything of similar size and shape would suffice. I also made an alternate version using milliput. Just shape the putty around the wire into a rough cone shape. I made a sort of mould with a coin and some scrap plastic to press into the bottom to create a recess for magnets. Make sure you use plenty of water on the bottom so the putty doesn't stick. Simple. Much easier than trying to drill holes in coins. Here's my result, a variety of shapes and heights. Now to start attaching the clump foliage to the base. I suggest putting a piece of paper or something down so you can pick up the leftover chunks of foliage easily. Just add a little bit of super glue at a time and wrap the pieces of clump foliage around the wire. Press it down a little bit, but not so much that it becomes flattened and compressed. Just add little bits and gradually build it upwards. Be careful to avoid getting any glue on your fingers. You don't want the foliage sticking to them. It makes the process really annoying and difficult. Eventually, you'll have something like this. I was a bit negligent and left the coin at the base exposed, so I had to go back and glue some small chunks of foliage onto that. Here are my first 5 examples. I do have a Soviet army with a lot of tanks, so I'm going to need at least 1,000 more. You might notice that the foliage is a bit loose and fragile, and that's why we do the next step. I superglued some scrap plastic tube to the bottom of these simply to act as a handle. You don't need to do that, but it does make it a lot easier to handle. I then watered down some PVA glue. This step is rather messy, so if you care about your work surface, you might want to put something down. I used a syringe to apply the diluted PVA glue to the smoke columns. You could just pour it on right from the mixing cup, or maybe brush it on. Either way, the idea is to completely soak the smoke markers to make them nice and solid when they're dry. I poked some holes in some plastic packaging to make a holder for them to dry in. I rotated them a couple of times while they dried so the glue would dry evenly throughout. Normally this would be the final step before painting, but I wanted to see if I could cast these using a silicone mould. I primed them first, hoping that would help, built boxes out of Lego and began the mould making process. I had a feeling this might have been a bad idea. I would like to have quite a few of these markers, and being able to just cast them in resin would be a lot easier than making each one by hand. And if you don't try things, how are you going to learn? From others' mistakes is how. Hopefully I can prevent others from wasting their time. As you can see, it was awful. The original was destroyed. Oh well. I hope this has been helpful or interesting for you. Next week I'll be painting these, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Farewell.